And welcome back to today's episode on Reddit questions and answers, where I take the trending hot questions in the last 24 hours and give you some context, professional opinions, and hopefully some tips and tricks that will help you. Spent this morning finding a couple questions that I think are very interesting. If you like the content, feel free to like and subscribe. It goes a long way, especially as I'm trying to build consistency with this channel. Let's dive right into today's episode with question number 1 from Reddit user weightlifting. How long do you warm up, and do you start low and go higher, or do you just start high? This Reddit user asks. So we're talking warm-ups, which is good. This is something different. I want to cover all topics related to health, fitness, exercise, nutrition, and the gym. Today we're going to be talking about warm-ups and sets. There is context, which is always important, and it's always good. I usually do pyramid sets, aka I start lower weight and I work to a higher, more intense weights. With lower weights, I can do more reps before gassing out, and on higher weight, I can do less reps before gassing out. I feel like the intensity is good on both, but much higher on the higher weights, naturally, because higher intensity. But I have heard lifting lower weights can be junk sets, even if they feel good. What I mean by that is not engaging them with the muscle as much, as therefore the growth and strength won't be as good. What people generally do on here. And I'm really happy with my workouts, and I feel strong in and out of the gym. But I am also learning and improving my technique and progress. Thanks. All right, this is a very good question, and the term junk sets, we're going to get into that in a second. Okay, so warming up. There are a lot of opinions about warming up. There is some science, and I'm not going to get too much into the science specifically now, be really biased with your opinions. Hey, I will rather take a more practical approach that's more realistic to someone who doesn't have a lot of time, who wants to get results, who still wants to have good workouts and great gains from them. So before we get into junk sets, we're going to talk about the actual warm-up recommendations that I would do. I would generally, for most beginner to intermediate lifters, you are not lifting heavy enough weights to require to do too much warming up. What I mean by that is someone who is an advanced lifter, let's say who is going to be lifting a 200 kilogram deadlift or a 400 pound deadlift, if you will, they will require much more warming up because they are more advanced. So their warm-ups might be something like some mobility, the empty barbell, some RDLs, 60 kilograms, maybe 80 kilograms, 100, 140, 160, 180 for a couple reps. And then they're at 200, which is a 15 to half an hour minute process. For someone who's a beginner to potentially intermediate at, say, 100 kilogram deadlift or a 200 pound deadlift, your warm-up might be dynamic stretching, some light mobility, which might take you 5 minutes, the empty barbell, some RDL, some stretches, some lunges, body weight, 60 kilograms, 80 kilograms for 1 rep or 2 reps, and you're up to 100 working, and then you start with your working weight. That's it. I think warm-ups are too complicated and people are doing too much with them. Now, if you're specifically working on mobility and that is your goal, then of course you can take more time. If you are a weightlifter, if you're in the Olympics, if you're advanced, then yes, you will have a 20-minute, 30-minute, even an hour-long mobility warm-up session. That's normal. But if you're someone who's busy, who doesn't have a lot of time, you've got a 45-minute to an hour window to work out. You do a 5-minute Stairmaster, you warm up, you get the heart rate up, you do 5 minutes of mobility, like lunges, squats, something dynamic. You grab the bar, do a couple sets of RDLs, some rows or whatever, specific to the exercise, and you jump straight to your sets. That's it. You don't need more than that. You can get a very effective stimulus and training session out of that and also help prevent injury. Now, of course, injury is a whole different topic, and if you've got injuries and ailments and inabilities, then your warm-ups are specific. I am talking general population here. I'm talking general warm-ups. For example, for me, if I'm doing an upper body session, I'll come in and I'll start my workout on my watch. I'll spend the first 3 minutes of doing some rubber band, rotator cuff stretches, some over the hand. Then I'll do 2 sets of easy lat pull downs to get my back and shoulder blades blood flow. And I'll jump to a 20 kilo dumbbell for sets of 10, and then maybe 30 kilo dumbbells for a set of 5 reps, and then 40 kilo dumbbells for my working weight. That's it. My whole warm-up takes me about 5 to 7 minutes depending on the day. Now, regarding the term junk sets, as you mentioned, junk sets is more junk volume and junk sets. There are certain hypertrophy recommendations of sets and volume that we recommend within scientific research. There's been plenty to show you that there are certain rep ranges and muscles will respond, and it can be between 10 to 20 sets per muscle group that can be optimal for muscle growth. The reason I say it's optimal and junk sets in quotation marks is because it depends on your level, your intensity, and how well you're adapted. Some people can do really well with 2 sets of high intensity. Some people need 3 or even 4 sets. People who have been lifting for longer, they probably will need less sets and more intensity, whilst beginners could probably respond with more sets. So they're not necessarily hitting junk sets, but there is such a thing as doing too much. That is true. So to wrap up the point, I think the most important thing to take away is your warm-up should not get you tired. It'd be pretty easy, around 60% maximum effort. So if we're talking about RPE scale, up to 4 or 5 RPE max. You waste minimal effort and you produce maximal force on your main working sets. Maintaining muscle after 45 years old for females. This Reddit user asked, I'm a 46-year-old female and I've been lifting for most of my life, but I've noticed in the last year or two I seem to be slowly losing muscle. With weights twice a week, mobility training 1 to 2 times a week, I rock climb indoors once a week, and I run once a week for cardio. So she's pretty active, which is really good. Usually around 3 miles. Each workout is about 30 to 45 minutes. I keep my weights on the slightly heavier side, but low enough I can push around 10 reps. That's good. I also eat 1 gram of high quality protein per pound of body weight with every day. My eating is pretty clean, but alas, I'm slowly softening up. Maybe it's just the way it goes, but any tips are welcome. All right, so the first thing I'm going to address is the comments. I just find them very confusing and shocking in this specific thread, and I want to dive into this because we're going to all go off on a tangent, so welcome. We're going to go on this together. So the first comment, someone saying that you should consider taking creatine because that will make their body different. But creatine has no say in your body composition and in what your muscle will look soft. If anything, it will make your muscle look softer because of the water retention. The second comment is saying get some collagen because it will help maintain muscle mass. It will not. Collagen is the lowest quality source of protein. It will not. You need leucine, which is found in red meats. That is the best source of protein. And then someone is like, mix up the workout, so keep your body confused. Or when was the last time you took a rest week? Why would the rest week matter to change your body composition? And then someone says the older we get, the more volume we need to maintain our muscle mass. For teenagers, it's like 1 set a week and then it goes up. No, this is so much misleading information here. I'm sorry. Have you had a physical? Is it time? It's time to check out your doctor. And then everyone's talking about hormones and all these things. Okay. I'm done. I'm done with the comments. I'm not going to spend any more time with that. Okay. No, it is not creatine, and neither is it collagen that you need more of that. Perimenopause might be a separate thing and a separate subject to dive into, which can affect your body composition and of course age and all these things slow down. So 45 is definitely harder than for someone who is younger. 100% I agree. Females also put on muscle a lot slower than males do. Facts of life, unfortunately, means you have to work a little bit harder. Now I'm going to take an objective look into your routine. You don't mention any stats. You don't mention anything about your nutrition aside from eating protein, which was good, and saying you're eating clean. You mention you're training hard and you're working up to 10 reps. But the first things I would look at is that how hard are you really training? Do you have any sort of progression happening? Any sort of progressive overload in training? Are you trying to push a little bit heavier? The cardio you're doing is totally fine. What about your rest? What about your recovery? How's your stress? Those things might influence your progress stalling. You don't need more volume, as someone said in the comments. What you probably need to do is actually less volume and higher intensity because you're doing quite a lot already. Again, this is my assumptions based on the very brief description that you have given, but these are the questions I would ask first. If you're doing full body splits already, which is great, and you're saying you're doing twice a week, plus you're running, plus you're doing bouldering, you're doing more than enough, then I would actually look at the quality. The quality of work matters more than doing more. If you do 3 sessions effectively a week, they will get you way better results than doing 5 sessions half-assed through the week. I can't. I'm done with this question. The comments here are killing me. I'm going to spend the whole day arguing with them. Anyways, we're going to move on to the next question. Best way to get protein in. I'm a 19-year-old female, and after a few months on and off the gym due to relocating to a different country in exam season, I am ready to fully commit. However, to achieve the goal to my height and weight, I need to be eating 128 grams of protein a day. Protein powder doesn't seem to appeal to me, as I am in a calorie deficit and I don't like sweet things. I'm not a fussy eater, and all I eat is eggs and fish, but genuinely, I cannot reach my protein intake. The max I reached was 90 grams, and I was on a day when I was very unhealthy choices. Any advice? All right, let's get into this. Okay, so 128 grams of protein is really not that hard. Now, if you're not into sweet things, totally fine. And if you're not into protein powder as well, totally fine. You don't need either of those things. If you're mostly eating fish and eggs as your main sources of protein, first of all, I would look at varying your sources of protein. So can you include some way you consume your eggs? Are you boiling them? Are you scrambling your eggs? Are you doing egg whites only? What kind of fishes are you going? Fish is very highly caloric dense. It's a lot of fat, very high in calories. Where calorie deficit will get ruined and eaten up quickly. Eggs are an amazing source of protein. Can you explore chicken? Can you explore any other bird, any other poultry? That's the first thing I would look into. 130 grams, and also could look into dairy. Can you consume cottage cheese? That's one of the easiest and quickest ways, or Greek yogurt. You can make savory pancakes for breakfast, and that can have 30 to 50 grams of protein on the spot. Your goal was 130 grams of protein and you had 4 meals a day. You need about 30 to 40 grams of protein per meal. It's really not hard. A couple eggs, slice or 2 of sourdough bread, a bit of cheese, and you easily have a 40-gram protein breakfast. You take your lunch, for example, you take some fish, you put it on, again, a piece of sourdough toast, and you have another 30 to 40 grams. Probably sets you up to 80 grams of protein already. I think people make getting your daily protein in way more complicated than it needs to be. The people I work with, we build a system where you generally eat a lot of the same meals or similar meals on rotation. So that way you don't have to think so much and put energy behind the head of, am I going to hit my goal today? You already know you're going to hit your goal today because it's similar micronutrients in the food. So I don't think you need to be making a lot of unhealthy choices to hit your protein target goal a day. I don't think 130 grams of protein a day is too hard either. If you have any questions, as always, leave them in the comments. Feel free to leave a like and subscribe to the video. And today's episode is a wrap, and I'll catch you in the next one.